thoughts on the impact of math and analytics in the modern game?
It's too much of it. I understand it's a part of it, but some teams, analytics is more important than the game. Basketball is basketball, man.
While I wouldn't normally call Kenyon Martin the voice of reason, man, I feel him on this one. Give me hoopers who can actually play over spreadsheets and shot charts any day of the week. And teams are out here trying to reinvent the game and slap a number on everything. If you've ever actually watched the NBA, especially the playoffs, you know there are a million intangibles numbers can't touch. The eye test is real, and so too is common sense. Something the modern NBA has completely lost chasing analytics. They say numbers never lie. But what happens when they don't tell the whole story? You get blinded, you get led astray. I'm going to show you with 3 major examples how analytics are ruining today's game and how just a dash of common sense could fix it. Stick around because I'm exposing the closest MVP race that really shouldn't have been that close. The 3-point shooting big man. Let's rewind a little. For the absolute longest time in basketball, the saying around drafting was, you can't teach 7 foot. And so you always drafted the tallest guy with the thinking of, we can't teach 7 foot, but we can teach a guy to be skilled. Common sense. If there's a 10-foot hoop, the guy who's tallest is closest to it. Therefore, you feed the tallest guy for the easiest basket, which, sorry to burst your bubble, is a 2-pointer. Because when you're closer to the basket, it's easier to score. Distance makes it harder for everyone. But here comes analytics saying it's so awesome for every team to have a big man that can shoot threes to spread the floor, and 3 is more than 2, so therefore we should increase it. Yes, of course, there's room for big men who can shoot threes, and that's awesome for your offense. But how is a 3-point shot better if it's that much harder to make one? If you look at it this playoffs, it's ridiculous. Look at Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is literally bigger and more skilled than anybody on the floor 99% of the time. But the bulk of his shots come from 5 feet beyond the 3-point line, and it's somehow a flex that he's the greatest shooting big man ever. Bruh, analytics say, oh well, he can make that shot 40% of the time in the regular season, and therefore it's a great shot. But guess what? That doesn't translate to the playoffs when the defenses are keyed in and people are actually trying. And then, oh look, when Karl Anthony Towns is being aggressive, posting up and driving the lanes for 2s, his whole team frees up. Literally every time he catches the ball in the post, there's a double. Guess what a double means? There's somebody's man who's open. Make it make sense, bud. It's just so overrated, this 3-point shooting big man. And to most emphasize this point, before this year, who did the last 4 MVPs go to? Big men who have absolutely dominant interior games with Jokic and Embiid. And then, once they've established themselves, they leverage the 3, which then makes them unguardable. If you've got guys who are bigger and stronger than everyone, have them operate in the post. It doesn't matter if a shot is worth more when nobody can make it at the rate. You guys get what I'm saying? And this brings us to the next most awful creation of analytics, and it's the fast break 3. Unless it's Steph Curry and maybe prime Klay Thompson, watching dudes be 3-on-1 on a fast break then kick it out for 3 instead of a layup makes me want to put my head through a wall. Once again, for all the talk of numbers and analytics, simple math seems to be the left behind victim here. If a guy shoots 3-pointers 40% of the time, he is considered absolutely elite. And even if he's wide open, he's making that shot 45% of the time maximum, and that's being generous. What do you think the finishing percentage is for an open layup? 80%, 90%? So actually, you're giving up a guaranteed shot for a much lesser one because analytics has run some simulation 1 trillion times?
What?
It lacks so much common sense. If you have a layup, take it. Don't overthink it to the point where it seems like a shooting exhibition. This is something the NBA has been vastly criticized for and is losing ratings about. Since when is scoring a basket a bad thing? 2 or 3 points. Look at how we've swung in extremes, it's ridiculous. To that point, let's talk about the thing that has honestly been ruined the most by analytics. It is the MVP race and MVP voting. The narrative is we just had one of the closest races in recent memory. But what I don't understand is how much this award has lacked basic common sense for easily the last 30 years, but it's just gotten worse and worse. Most people say Michael Jordan was the best player in the league for at least 10 years, right? Easily longer, but 10 years, every single person can agree on. But yet, analytics found a way to not give him the MVP, despite every person saying he was the best player. Common sense would dictate, if he was clearly the best player in the league, shouldn't he have the MVPs to accompany it? And this should tell you itself how analytics has ruined the NBA and robbed it of basic common sense. Okay, you want to go more recent? Joel Embiid winning the MVP despite having suited up for half of all career games? The dude barely scratched into being even eligible for the award. Yet there are people who say they'd pick Embiid over Jokic. Well, analytics says Embiid is better in this and that. Yeah, well, guess what? Analytics only counts the game the dude has actually played. It doesn't account for the fact that he's never even available to suit up. Bro, honest to God though, right? Which GM with even one working brain cell would look at these two men and say, I take Embiid? Well, actually, there are a few, because analytics has robbed them of common sense. If you use your eyes and your brain, you'd know Jokic is vastly superior just in the fact that he's available to play for your team and the other guy isn't. And if we use this filter for the 2025 MVP race, it's much the same. They've relied on a whole bunch of numbers and analysis to try to convince us that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the MVP this year. But when you watch their teams play against each other, it was so blatantly obvious who is and has been the most valuable player in the NBA. And his name is Nikola Jokic. They just released the all NBA teams. And you know what the two didn't have in common? Oh yeah, other teammates who were all NBA players. But you want to know the craziest part? In the case of Nikola Jokic, actually, even the advanced analytics show you that he should have won MVP. If we look at a stat called VORP, which is value over replacement player, guess who the top two were? Oh yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jokic. But Jokic was number one with a worse team. So common sense would dictate, and oh yeah, where do both of them make the bulk of their living and cause terror? In the paint. Shooting twos. Jokic is the biggest guy on the floor and he's closest to the basket. Then, as we said earlier, when he's established dominance inside, he then steps out and becomes virtually impossible to defend. Yet, other big men in the league who are bigger and supposedly stronger and faster than him seem to be venturing further and further away from the basket because analytics has told them so, and that now all of a sudden posting up and getting twos is somehow bad. Can we please restore some common sense to the NBA? There's a place in our game for numbers and analytics, but it has to be one part of a bigger puzzle rather than the whole puzzle itself. If you want to know more about why I thought Jokic should have won the MVP, I did a full analysis that you can watch here.